Everyone's been panic buying fuel lately. They've run out.
Got long chicken and bacon for me. I had a raid through the Hot Wheels. I find it quite good for my head to get away from the world, come to places like this and just go for a walk. Trees everywhere. Update on what's been going on with Esther regarding her damage. You would have seen that Maude had quite a severe coolant leak. A coolant leak that I had to deal with on my dad's Mk3 recently as well. Need to see if I can get some more clearance on the arches. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes, and during my recent break away from YouTube, I did manage to get myself over to the garage to take care of a couple of jobs on Maude, my moredoor Mk2 Escort and my dad's Mk3 Escort, and today I'm going to bring you up to speed with everything that's been going on. Also, I think it's about time I answered the question that everyone's been asking, and that is, what's happening with Esther, my ST170 powered Mk1 Escort, with regards to her damage? So pretty soon, me and my beautiful girlfriend Kat are going to jump in Maude and head over to my other garage. But first, I've got something to show you. Loads of you have been asking recently when the mugs are going to be back in stock. And recently, I picked up another batch of the Esther mugs, which are available in gloss and satin finish, as well as a batch of the new Maude mugs, which now feature her new paint colour, as well as all the new black parts. I've also got new Maude stickers coming. They're not with me now, but they should be on the website by the time this video goes live. Still got plenty of the other stickers and the decals in stock for those of you that want to grab some of them. And I've also still got a few bits of clothing. Quite a lot of the MH polos, mainly all grey. Got a few black ones and one 2XL blue one. We've also got one random XL white hoodie and one random 2XL grey hoodie. We've got very few of the full Marcus Hayes logo t-shirts and quite a few blue MH t-shirts and some caps left as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a discount code to the website just for the clothing. So if you want to grab any clothing, just type in CLUMPFAB at checkout to save yourself 10%. It's only going to be for a limited time, so grab the bits while you can. So if you want to grab any merchandise to support and represent this channel, just head over to my website at marcushayesuk.com, and I'll obviously leave a link to that website in the description of this video.
Everyone's been panic buying fuel lately because there's been announcements on the news, apparently. I don't watch the news, but shortage of drivers and all that. You can see that this Asda fuel station isn't showing the price because they've run out. There's actually a Sainsbury's petrol station on this same junction, and that's showing no prices either. Anyway, we're now going into Asda because in here they've got a Subway.
Foot long chicken and bacon for me. What's yours?
Teriyaki.
6-inch teriyaki for Kat. And seeing as I'm in a supermarket, I had a raid through the Hot Wheels. Found this Mazda MX-5, but it's upside down. And I know that errors can sometimes make a few quid on eBay. I spotted this Ford GT40 as well.
Alright, so Subway consumed, and now we need to battle through the traffic of the numpties that are panic buying fuel. I don't have a lot of fuel myself, so I'm going to have to get in one of these long queues before long. And my car uses a lot more fuel than most people's do, even though I drive very economically.
Just stopped at a local spot away from all human life. Just trees everywhere. This place is pucker. Yeah, I find it quite good for my head to get away from the world and come to places like this and just go for a walk. This is actually on the grounds of like a hotel and a restaurant. Not actually sure if we're allowed to park here unless we're going to the hotel or the restaurant, but there's no signs in the car parks. Hopefully Maude won't get a clamp or anything. Yeah, these are sort of the gardens of the hotel. A bit less pretty than I remember, but maybe because it's the end of the summer now, they've sort of given up on it. Bit of a stream or a river there. Yeah, it's crazy, you could actually walk for ages in amongst all this woodland and that. I have to come back one day and spend a couple of hours here, but for now, I think we need to get to the garage. Alright, so we've made it to the garage, and I thought I'd start off by giving you an update on what's been going on with Esther regarding her damage. And there's not a lot to report, to be honest. She's still here, and she's still damaged. Now, I have been backwards and forwards on the phone to the legal company that my insurance broker uses to deal with the claims, and it was going a bit slow. The guy that was dealing with my claim was on annual leave and stuff, and yeah, they didn't seem to get back to me. But where I'm at now, I've actually spoken to the third party's insurance company and confirmed that there's no contest in terms of fault. They've already signed it off as their insured being at fault, and I've sent, you know, the photos and details to the legal company that's dealing with it, and they've sent it off to the third party. And where I'm at now is the third party's insurance want to send an engineer around to have a look at the damage. They were talking about doing a sort of desktop inspection where I send them the photos, but I think I'd prefer it if they actually came and looked at the damage in person. But yeah, you know, I've got the estimate from the company that I want to do the job, and I've sent that off. And yeah, it's just a case of getting them to do the engineer's report, and then hopefully they'll agree to pay for the work and we can send Esther off to get repaired. I'm not in any hurry to get it done, to be honest. You know, it's the end of the summer now. She probably won't be coming out until next year, and I want it done properly. So as I say, I'm not in a rush, but behind the scenes, I am, you know, trying to get the claim sorted and get her repaired, and I will of course keep you updated on exactly what goes on in the future. One thing I think I am going to do today is drain her fuel tank. With what's going on with the petrol stations at the moment, if I can nick the fuel out of Esther and put it in Maude, it will mean that I won't have to go and queue up today to get any fuel. And you know, fuel does go off over time, so there's no point leaving it in Esther if she's not going to be on the road anytime soon. Now this should be quite an easy process. I just need to undo this fuel hose from the fuel pressure regulator. I'll probably stick a bit of hose on the end of there just so that the fuel doesn't go everywhere, and then I should be able to drain that into a jerry can. Change of plan, I'm going to use this thin water bottle. I should just be able to slide that on to there once I remove this. Yeah, as I mentioned, I was going to use a hose and then just have the jerry can on the floor there, but the jerry can won't slide under. Can't be bothered to jack it up. Put a bit more tape on it to protect it. Try not to scratch up the fancy fuel fittings. Seem to have lost the funnel for my jerry can, so we're going to try and chuck it straight in out of the bottle without spilling any on the paint. Sweet, probably have to do that another 3-4 times and we'll be done. All right, so I managed to get a good few litres out of Esther, and I've reattached Esther's fuel line to the regulator. I've actually left a little bit of fuel in the tank just so that we can get Esther up on a truck when it comes time to send her off to get repaired. In the last video, you would have seen that Maude had quite a severe coolant leak, which was basically running onto this area of the block from behind the water pump housing. Now I've got this spare water pump housing here. Basically that sort of slides behind the cam belt and bolts to the block, and then the water pump bolts onto there. On the silver tops I think it's all one piece, but on the black tops it's in 2 pieces like this. Now when I was at the Ace Cafe, admittedly it was dark, but when I was feeling under here I couldn't feel any water, so I didn't think it was coming from between the water pump and the housing, so I assumed it was coming from the back of the housing where you have a sort of round metal gasket here. And these gaskets, I'll put a picture up, but these gaskets have like locking tabs on them, so you can lock them onto the housing and then fit it to the engine. And the one that was fitted to the housing that I removed recently didn't have those locking tabs. And I actually remember when I first put this engine in the car that those locking tabs were missing. So yeah, when I was at the Ace Cafe and I saw the water gushing out the back, I just immediately assumed that that was the gasket at fault. Now, I was able to change that gasket without actually pulling the cam belt fully off.
you know, to do that you'd have to lock it in time with the timing tools and stuff. Now what I actually did was I loosened the tension on the alternator belt and took that out of the way, got rid of this idler pulley, then removed this front cover, which is actually the engine mount when they're fitted to the Focus and the Mondeos. And yeah, with that out of the way, there's just 2 bolts that hold the water pump housing to the block. One of them is there and one of them's there. So what I did is I released the tension on the cam belt slightly, just so that I could pull the belt forward on these pulleys, and then that meant that once I'd undone the bolts for the housing, I was able to slide it out from behind the cam belt. Obviously had to disconnect the coolant hose there, which goes on there, but yeah, I was able to change that gasket without fully taking the cam belt off. So then I put the car back together, obviously put the cam belt back where it should be, done the tension back up, put the alternator belt back on and stuff, and then ran the engine, and I found that there was still a leak. Now this time I used a little mirror to see exactly where the water was running down from, and yeah, I could see that there was water running down from here. So I assumed that the water pump seal itself was at fault. So I changed the water pump itself for a spare one that I had in my garage, a used one. This is the one that I removed, and yeah, this is the O-ring on it that seals. And yeah, this O-ring looks a bit rough. It's not split or anything, but compared to the one that was on that used pump that I fitted, yeah, this one is a bit manky. So I assume, in fact, the leak was coming from here all along. But when I was at the Ace Cafe and it was dark, I wasn't, you know, able to see exactly where it's coming from, because it was gushing, you know, from the back of the water pump housing, and I couldn't feel any moisture underneath. I just immediately assumed that it was the gasket on the back of this housing. But anyway, now it's got a new gasket where the housing meets the block, and it's now got a better but used water pump, and it seems like it doesn't leak. Now, one other thing I did today before I turned the camera on when I got here was replace this washer piping. Basically, over time, the heat from the engine makes it sort of go soft and swell, and it just starts leaking from the joints, and especially down there where it meets the pump because of the exhaust heat. This time I've used a thinner tube, and I actually had to use heat to get the ends onto, you know, all the bits, and hopefully that will last a bit longer. But yeah, with brand new tube, the jets should work properly, although I did notice that it wasn't coming out of this one. So yeah, I need to poke a pin in there, and then my washer jets will work again. Now, there is a couple of little things I want to look at on Maude today, but first I'm going to explain a coolant leak that I had to deal with on my dad's Mark III recently as well. All right, so while Maude had her bad coolant leak, I decided to use my dad's Mark III to get to work. And a couple of days after I started using it, I noticed a coolant leak from this car as well. Now, it was very slight, and where it was coming out of was the core plug in the head, which is just down there below the dizzy. Now, obviously, this cylinder head was very recently rebuilt by Chris KEMBER at CLUMPFAB, and I'll leave links to his social media in the description. If you need any cylinder head work doing, he's actually able to offer 10% off for anyone who watches my videos. So yeah, give him a shout, mention my name, and save some dough on all your cylinder head work. Anyway, when Chris did the cylinder head, he didn't replace the core plug. In my opinion, if it's a genuine Ford core plug that's been fitted at the factory, you don't want to disturb it unless you really have to. So yeah, he left the original one in, but as I say, it did start leaking recently. Now, I can't find the old core plug that I removed from my dad's head, but here's the set of CVH core plugs that I bought from my friends at Burton Power. I'll leave a link to their website in the description. It's also worth noting that the water pump housing gasket that I fitted to Maude recently, I also got that from my friends at Burton Power. And I'll just quickly explain how I remove these. The way I do it, that will be, you know, pressed into the head. And basically, I put a chisel on one side and give it a tap, and then that makes it sort of rotate in the hole that it's in, and then you're able to grab it with some mole grips and just pull it out. And then to refit the new one, I always put a tiny bit of sealer on it. I'm pretty sure they're supposed to go in dry, but I always do it just in case. And then you have to tap it in, you know, using a drift or a socket the correct size, and it has to go in dead evenly. But yeah, I was able to tap that in without too much trouble. I did remove the dizzy to make the job easier, but yeah, tap the new one in and it was sweet. On the old one, there was a tiny little pinhole, which is obviously caused by rust over time. And yeah,
Now I've got a full set of CVH core plugs, minus that one in the head, for if I ever need to replace any more in the future. Alright, so a couple of things I want to do on Maude before I leave here today. I need to change the angle of the engine just to get the exhaust manifold away from the floor. So I'm basically going to tilt the engine this way slightly. I also need to see if I can get some more clearance on the arches. This front one rubs when you're braking sometimes. And yeah, that isn't folded very flat at all, especially around here, and I think that's where it's hitting. But yeah, I think I'll do a bit more towards the back of the arch as well. And I'm going to see if I can get some more clearance on the rear arches as well. Anyway, I'm going to start off with adjusting the tilt on this engine. Quite easy to do, just need to loosen the engine mounts. Yeah, so I'll put the jack under the rear corner of the sump on the driver's side. Yeah, I'm going to do this side up now. Ooh. Should really disconnect the battery, he says, as he carries on without disconnecting the battery. And when I let the jack down, hopefully this mount will slide down a bit. Give it a bit of a whack. Yeah, I don't think that's worked, to be honest. The engine does definitely seem tilted that way. And do this side back up and hopefully it's improved. Yeah, I think that's better. I'll find out once I'm back on the road. Alright, so I've just run around and cracked off all the wheel nuts, and I'm going to start on this passenger side front wheel and see if we can get some more clearance from the arch. I've got this arch roller. Now I remember the last time I tried to use this, I can't remember whether it was the front or the back, but it seemed like it wasn't short enough. I think it might have been the back actually, and I think I might have actually been jacking it up by the axle. So this time it might work if I jack it up by the body and let the axle hang. On the front, if it's not short enough, I might be able to undo the nut here on the top mount to allow the strut to go down further. But yeah, as I say, I can't remember whether it was the front or the rear that I tried last time and failed. So yeah, I'm gonna have another go today. Definitely seems too long on this front one. Yeah. Give me a few mil at least. These nuts on the wrong way around, just so the flat bit of the nut is against there. Don't want to destroy this tape a bit. Alright, so basically this sort of just rolls like that, and then gradually should fold that lip around. Got this lever here that loosens it so you can adjust the tilt of the roller. Ideally I'd want it more tilted that way, but yeah, as I say, this is a bit too long for these old cars with small wheels, but we'll give it a go. It's kind of working. And then basically as you go, you wind this out, which then tilts it out this way to put more pressure on it. Just keep going, obviously expecting the paint to crack. It's the beauty of having a roll-on paint job. Just wind this back in, take the tension off a bit, tilt this back a bit to the front of the arch. We're going to have a lot more clearance now. Alright, so I've just finished rolling the driver's side front now. Plenty of cracked paint, as expected. Now this side actually wasn't rubbing as far as I know, but recently I've been hearing a bit of a knocking noise from the front driver's side. I think it might be something to do with the suspension, but what I noticed the other day is that this wing is loose. It's not moving now, I'm trying to show you, but yeah. It's a bit loose. Now when Chris KEMBER at CLUMPFAB put a new front end on this car, he very kindly made the front wings bolt on. And yeah, there's two bolts in here that are a bit loose, so I'm going to do them up and hopefully the noise I could hear will go away. But as I say, I think it might actually be something to do with the suspension, so I'm not holding my breath. All right, so they're nice and tight now. I'm going to put the front wheel back on and then we'll see if we're able to roll the arches on the rear anymore. Yeah, it's too long. Clearly too long. Let's see if I can bolt it on just 2 of them. Like that. It's a bit ropey, but I've bolted it to just 2 of the studs because the tool is too tall to do the rears. Let's see how we get on. It's towards the back of the arch, if I remember rightly. Now it's not in the centre of the pivot. Yeah. Might be able to do something. That was exhausting. I think I've gained a tiny bit of clearance around here, which is where I think it was rubbing. Tried to do the front of the arch a bit as well. The tool seemed to have just messed up. I was trying to wind this to take the tension off and it wasn't taking the tension off, so let's see if the tool's actually working before I attempt the other side. Alright, so Maude is now back on the ground and I've tightened up all the wheel nuts. On this side, on the arch, it basically ran out of adjustment in terms of the tension on the tool to pull this way, so I ended up using the trusty hammer. But yeah, I've got it flatter round where I think it needs it. This side doesn't rub as much as the other side. If you see, there's just a little bit of rubbage on the tyre. And around this side, the tyre's pretty slick on the sidewall. But yeah, I still managed to get a little bit more clearance where I think it needs it, but I don't think it's going to be enough, to be honest. So the front, now that I've done the wing up, it would have pulled it in a bit more. So, you know, hopefully what I've done on this arch should ensure I've got enough clearance. It feels like there's plenty of clearance, to be honest. And this side, yeah, again, there's plenty of clearance there now, so that should be all good. Anyway, we'll find out when she's on the road if there is any rubbing, and we'll find out if that knocking noise that I heard was the front wing or not, which I doubt, but we'll see. More traffic. Panic buyers of petrol.
Alright, so seem to have got through that bit of traffic now. So far, the knocking sound coming from the front driver's side definitely seems a lot better than it was. So it was obviously partly to do with that loose front wing. There's still something there, but it is very, very slight. Maybe something to do with one of the suspension joints or whatever. The exhaust is still vibrating against the body, but yeah, I could definitely tell that it was still close even after I'd adjusted the angle of the engine. But yeah, that's better than it was, and I haven't noticed any noises of the rear tyres rubbing on the arches when we're going over bumps, so that looks good as well. This evening, me and Kat are going to go and get some dinner somewhere out. We're not sure where yet, but tomorrow evening I'm planning to go to a car meet, and I think I'm going to continue this video then, so I'll see you in a sec. Hello, right, so a couple of days have passed since the last clip, and the car meet that I thought that was on the day after the last clip was in fact on that same evening, so we missed it. Right now I'm on the way to work to start another week, so I'm going to end this video here. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe to keep up to date with all my future uploads, and check the links in the description to my social media and my website. I'll also leave my email address down there for anyone who wants to contact me. Massive thanks to each and every one of you for your continued support of my channel. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.